The cold emptiness of space stretched out endlessly, a vast sea of black dotted with the occasional star. Far away in the peaceful corner of the galaxy, a race of beings known as the Valorians were facing their darkest hour. Their beautiful homeworld, a planet known for its advanced technology and breathtaking landscapes, was under attack by the ruthless Zarn Empire. The Zarn were a warlike species, fierce and brutal, who had spread their empire by conquering planets one after another. The Valorians had long been peaceful, their advanced knowledge in science and technology making them valuable to the galaxy, but their physical frailty made them vulnerable to the violent Zarn. Now, their planet's capital, the shining jewel of the Valorian system, was in flames. Desperation filled the air as the Valorians realized that their once strong defense system could not hold the Zarn back any longer. The invasion was relentless, and their only hope was to call for help. In a small hidden chamber, deep beneath the planet's surface, Princess Velora, the leader of the Valorians, looked down at the glowing console in front of her. With trembling hands, she typed a message. "Help us. We are under attack. We have no more strength to fight back. If you can hear us, please help." It was a simple message, but it carried the weight of a dying world. It was their last chance to survive. The distress call was sent out to the farthest reaches of space, hoping that someone, anyone, would answer. Back on Earth, life was vastly different. Earth was a planet of survival, a death world, where humanity had endured unimaginable challenges for centuries. The Earth had weathered wars, natural disasters, and constant battles for resources. But it was in these harsh conditions that humanity had learned to adapt, thrive, and survive. Commander Sarah Hawk sat at the head of a large, circular table aboard the Earth military command ship, the Vindictive. She was a battle-hardened leader, known for her sharp mind and unwavering courage. Her experience with warfare was unmatched, and her reputation had spread throughout the galaxy. Yet, despite the countless victories she had won on Earth, Sarah had never faced anything like what was happening now. She stared at the glowing screen in front of her, reading the distress signal from the Valorians. Her heart sank as she understood the gravity of the situation. The Valorians were an advanced race, but they were no match for the Zarn. Their plea for help was their last hope. As Sarah absorbed the message, a soft beep interrupted her thoughts. It was a notification from her superior officer, General Daniels. He was an older man, with a reputation for being tough but fair. His voice came through the comm system as he gave her the orders. "Commander Hawk, the Galactic Council has authorized a mission to assist the Valorians. We are to send our best and brightest to help them in their time of need. Prepare your team and get ready to depart. The fate of a peaceful race depends on us." Sarah looked around the room at her team of soldiers. Each one of them was a veteran, having survived countless battles on Earth. But this mission would be different. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the survival of an entire species. "Understood, sir," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "We'll be ready." The team's preparation began immediately. The Vindictive was one of Earth's most advanced ships, designed for speed and agility, able to carry a small but effective team of soldiers. Commander Hawk handpicked each member of the crew, choosing individuals who were not only skilled in combat, but also quick-thinking and resourceful. There was Lieutenant Mark Grant, a sharpshooter with unmatched accuracy. Sergeant Lisa Doyle, a master strategist and expert in hand-to-hand combat, and Corporal Tom Harris, a communications expert who could decrypt any signal, no matter how encrypted. But despite their skills and training, the crew could not help but feel a sense of uncertainty. They had never fought alongside another species before, especially one as delicate as the Valorians. The thought of defending a race that was physically weaker than humans troubled some of them. "Are we really the right people for this job?" Lieutenant Grant asked, his voice tinged with doubt as he packed his gear. I mean, these aliens are practically defenseless. We're Deathworlders, Sarah said, glancing over at him. We don't back down from a fight, no matter who or what we're up against. We'll protect them. We have to. Sergeant Doyle nodded in agreement. We're not just doing this for them. We're doing it for the galaxy. If we don't stop the Zarn here, they'll just keep on taking more worlds. The Valorians are the first, but they won't be the last. Sarah stepped up to the front of the room, her commanding presence filling the space. We leave in 1 hour. We make sure the Valorians survive, no matter the cost. As the Vindictive prepared to launch, Sarah's mind raced. She knew that humanity's reputation as Deathworlders was built on their ability to survive and adapt. But this mission would test their strength in ways they had never imagined. They were not just saving a world, they were stepping into a galaxy that had never seen what humans were capable of. The crew members gathered in the ship's docking bay, ready for what lay ahead. The ship's engines hummed with power as the countdown began. Each soldier silently understood the risks, but none of them hesitated. The Vindictive rose from Earth's surface, cutting through the atmosphere and into the cold void of space. As they left their home planet behind, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what awaited them on the other side. The Zarn were fierce enemies, and even with the combined might of humanity's best soldiers, victory was far from certain. But one thing was clear. Earth's warriors had faced death before, and they had always risen above it. For the Valorians, and for the galaxy, humanity's intervention might just be the difference between survival and extinction. The engines of the Vindictive roared as the massive ship shot through the vacuum of space. Outside, the stars blurred into streaks of light as they traveled faster than the speed of light, heading toward the Valorian system. The crew had already begun their preparations for the dangerous mission ahead. Every soldier on board was focused, knowing the gravity of their task. Commander Sarah Hawk stood in the command center, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors as she gave orders to her crew. They were deep in the cold expanse of space, far from home. But Sarah had confidence in her team. She knew they had what it took to get the job done. Beside her, Lieutenant Mark Grant was double-checking the weaponry systems. His job was to ensure the weapons were ready to go the moment they entered. The Valorian system. The Zarn were ruthless, and Earth's soldiers would need every advantage. "We're almost ready, Commander," Grant said, his voice steady as he adjusted the targeting systems. "All systems are green. Weapons are primed." Sarah nodded, her mind focused. "Good. Stay sharp. We don't know what kind of fight we'll be walking into." Sergeant Lisa Doyle, the team's strategist, stood by a large tactical display, running simulations of possible battle scenarios. "I've been analyzing the Zarn fleet's tactics. They don't follow conventional warfare rules. We'll have to be unpredictable, hit them where it hurts. If we can force them into a defensive position, we might stand a chance." Sarah walked over to the tactical display, reviewing the maps and data with her. The Valorians' home system was beautiful, with lush planets and brilliant moons, but the Zarn had already begun to tear it apart. From the satellite images they received, it was clear that the Zarn were not just attacking. They were aiming to wipe out the Valorians completely. "We can't let that happen," Sarah muttered under her breath. "If the Zarn win here, they'll just keep going. We need to stop them at all costs." As the ship flew deeper into the unknown reaches of the galaxy, the crew members gathered in the ship's mess hall for a brief meal. Tension hung in the air, but there was an underlying sense of determination. Everyone knew their mission, and each one of them had been chosen because they were the best humanity had to offer. Sarah sat down at the table with her team, her hands wrapped around a cup of warm coffee. She looked at each of them carefully. Mark Grant, the sharpshooter, who had once fought in Earth's most dangerous jungles. Lisa Doyle, a strategist who had led countless special forces teams in Earth's most volatile territories. And Corporal Tom Harris, the communications expert who could hack into enemy networks faster than anyone else. We've trained for this moment our entire lives, Sarah said, breaking the silence. This isn't just about saving the Valorians. It's about sending a message. We're Deathworlders. We fight, we win, and we don't back down. The team nodded, each of them knowing that this mission would test everything they had learned. Humanity had never been a part of galactic affairs before, but the time had come. Earth had its first chance to make its mark on the larger galaxy. Harris, who had been quietly working on his terminal, looked up with a grin. I just decrypted the Zarn's battle signals. They're preparing for a full assault on Valoria. We'll be entering a war zone in a few hours. The mood shifted slightly as everyone understood what that meant. The fight wouldn't be easy, but if anyone could take on the Zarn, it was them. Prepare yourselves, Sarah said firmly. We'll be landing soon, and when we do, we're not just fighting for the Valorians, we're fighting for all the peaceful races in the galaxy who are too afraid to stand up to the Zarn. Let's show them what Earth's warriors can do. As the hours passed, the ship continued its journey toward the Valorian system. In the silence of space, the crew continued their tasks, each person mentally preparing for the battle ahead. No one spoke much. They all knew that words wouldn't change the gravity of their mission. But the shared resolve was enough. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Vindictive arrived at the outskirts of the Valorian system. They could see the distant flicker of distant planets and moons. But it was the center of the system that caught their attention. The Valorian homeworld was under siege. The massive Zarn fleet was stationed around the planet, massive warships looming like predators ready to strike. Sarah's heart tightened at the sight, but her resolve hardened. This was their moment. They would not fail. Lieutenant Grant, get us in close, Sarah ordered. Sergeant Doyle, I want you to brief the team on the enemy's tactics one more time. Harris, start working on disabling the Zarn communications. We can't let them. Call for reinforcements. The crew snapped into action, each one moving quickly and efficiently. They had trained for this, and they were ready. The Zarn had underestimated Earth's warriors, and that would be their downfall. As the Vindictive approached the Valorian system, the battle began in earnest. The Zarn warships fired their deadly lasers toward the planet, but Sarah's team was ready. The Vindictive expertly dodged and weaved through the barrage, its speed and maneuverability far superior to anything the Zarn had ever faced. The crew worked as one, each person doing their part. The human soldiers' tactics were unconventional, unpredictable, and deadly. They didn't fight like the Zarn. They fought with the desperation and determination that only Earth's warriors could muster, and it was working. Within moments, the first Zarn ship exploded in a bright flash, followed by another and another. The humans were relentless, pushing the Zarn back and causing chaos within their ranks. It was a fight like no other, but the humans were not afraid. Sarah stood at the helm, watching as her crew tore through the enemy lines. They had proven themselves. They were the true warriors of this galaxy. Keep it up, everyone, Sarah said with a fierce smile. We're just getting started. The battle raged on as the Vindictive danced around the Zarn warships, expertly avoiding their laser blasts. The humans had made an impact, but the Zarn were far from defeated. They were relentless, and their fleet was massive. Every time the humans destroyed one ship, another took its place. It was clear that this fight wouldn't be won easily. Inside the command center, Commander Sarah Hawk kept a sharp eye on the battle outside. The Valorians' planet was still under attack, and their defenses were faltering. The human fleet had made an impressive start, but the Zarn strategy was not so easily broken. We need to take down their command ship, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the chaos. If we can cut off their leadership, the rest of the fleet will fall apart. Lieutenant Mark Grant quickly scanned the enemy formations on his display. There it is, he said, pointing to the largest ship in the Zarn fleet. The Zarnoth, their flagship. If we destroy that, the rest of the fleet should scatter. Then that's our target, Sarah confirmed. Set course for the Zarnoth. The Vindictive lurched forward as the crew focused on their next target. The crew members, now more confident than before, worked in perfect unison. The ship's weapon systems fired at full power, targeting the Zarn fleet with deadly accuracy. But the Zarnoth was heavily guarded, and it took everything they had to break through the defensive line. Meanwhile, on the surface of Valoria, the Valorians were in full retreat. Princess Valora stood at the head of a group of her people, watching from a safe distance as the humans fought with a ferocity they had never seen before. The Valorians had always prided themselves on their advanced technology, but now they were in awe of the humans' sheer will to survive. "Are they always like this?" Princess Valora asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and admiration as she watched the Vindictive weave through the enemy ships. Princess Valora's advisor, a tall, wise Valorian named Talon, nodded. "Yes, humans do not know how to quit. It is said that they are born to fight and never surrender. If anyone can save us, it is them." Valora's eyes never left the screen. "Then I will put my trust in them. Let us hope they are as strong as they appear." Back aboard the Vindictive, the crew was pushing toward the Zarnoth, but the Zarn were not going down without a fight. The flagship's defenses were intense, and the ship's massive cannons fired deadly blasts, narrowly missing the Vindictive. Sergeant Lisa Doyle studied the enemy ship's movements. "They're starting to anticipate our moves. If we don't change tactics, they'll catch us in a trap. We need to be unpredictable," Sarah said, her voice calm but commanding. "Mark, give us a zigzag flight path. Lisa, prepare a boarding team. Once we get in close, we'll take out their command crew. We'll do this on foot." Mark Grant nodded as he adjusted the ship's course. "Hold on tight, everyone. This is going to get rough." The Vindictive swerved violently as it dodged another wave of laser blasts from the Zarnoth. With every turn, the ship shook, and alarms blared through the halls. But the crew was well trained, and they held steady, ready for boarding, Sergeant Doyle said, her voice tight with focus. She and her team of elite soldiers stood in the ship's bay, weapons ready. "Let's show them how humans fight." As the Vindictive closed in on the Zarnoth, the crew prepared for the most dangerous part of the mission. They would need to board the flagship, disable its systems, and neutralize the Zarn leadership before their reinforcements arrived. With a loud bang, the docking clamps locked onto the Zarn ship. The boarding team, led by Sarah herself, rushed toward the airlocks. They moved quickly and silently through the corridors, relying on their training and instincts. The Zarn flagship was huge, and it was easy to get lost in its winding halls. But the humans knew exactly where to go. They'd been given coordinates from Harris, who had hacked into the Zarn's communications. "We're almost there," Sarah whispered as they reached the control room. "Once we breach, focus on the command officers. We can't let them call for backup." The team breached the door with a quick blast, and chaos erupted inside. The Zarn command officers, caught off guard, scrambled to defend themselves. But the human soldiers were too quick, too deadly. In moments, the Zarn officers were disarmed and captured. Sarah stood at the center of the room, her gun still smoking. "This is Earth's message," she said, looking around at the captured Zarn leaders. "No one threatens innocent lives without facing the consequences." The team quickly disabled the Zarn communication systems, cutting off their ability to send reinforcements. But there was still more work to be done. As Sarah and her team secured the command room, the rest of the Vindictive crew continued to engage the remaining Zarn ships outside. Back on Valoria, Princess Valora watched the live feed of the battle. Her heart swelled with pride and hope as the humans fought on. They had taken on the Zarn without fear, and now, it seemed, they had the upper hand. The Valorians had never known warriors like these humans. Their strength, their resolve, their will to never give up, these were things the Valorians had only read about in ancient legends. But now, those legends were coming to life before their eyes. "I think we are going to win this," Princess Valora said softly, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "I think the humans will save us." As the battle outside continued to shift in favor of the humans, Sarah and her team returned to the Vindictive. The Zarnoth was now under their control, and the Zarn fleet was in disarray. The humans had done it. They had broken the Zarn's grip on the Valorian system. Sarah stood on the bridge, watching the Valorian planet below. The battle was far from over, but they had made a huge step toward victory. "We've got this," she said, a small but confident smile on her face. "The galaxy will know that humans keep their word." The Vindictive loomed in space like a predator among prey, its weapons still humming from the recent battle. Commander Sarah Hawk stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the results of the latest fight. The Zarn fleet was no longer the unstoppable force it had once been. Thanks to the humans' relentless tactics and their unpredictable maneuvers, the tide of battle had shifted in their favor. "Commander," Lieutenant Grant said from his station, his voice calm but with an edge of excitement, "we've taken down 3 more Zarn ships and their forces are scattering. It's working." Sarah nodded but didn't smile. They had won a few skirmishes, but the battle wasn't over yet. The Vindictive was far from being out of danger. Even though the Zarn were reeling, they were still a formidable enemy, and their next move could be just as deadly. "Stay alert, Mark. We haven't won until we've secured Valoria," Sarah replied. "We need to force them to retreat for good." Sergeant Doyle, who had been working alongside the command team, walked over with a new set of battle reports. "The Zarn are starting to fight with more desperation. They're retreating to their last stronghold, an asteroid field near the Valorian moons. If we don't push them out now, they'll have a chance to regroup and strike again." "Then, we need to finish them off," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We're going to push them into that asteroid field and trap them there. We can't let them escape." Mark quickly updated the ship's course, guiding the Vindictive toward the asteroid field where the Zarn fleet had retreated. The massive field of rock and debris would give the Zarn ships cover, but the humans knew how to use their surroundings to their advantage. They had lived through Earth's dangerous environment for centuries, adapting and surviving where others couldn't. The asteroid field would not be an obstacle. It would be an opportunity. As the Vindictive moved closer to the field, Sarah's mind raced with strategies. She knew the Zarn would expect them to charge in blindly, as most fleets would. But that was not the way humans fought. They didn't rush into battle. They baited their enemies into traps. "We're going to lure them into a kill zone," Sarah said to the team. "Grant, I want you to simulate a retreat. Pull the Vindictive back for a few minutes to give them the false impression that we're running out of options." Lieutenant Grant raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Understood. We'll make them think we're retreating, then hit them when they least expect it." The ship turned away from the asteroid field, accelerating rapidly as though it was fleeing the scene. From a distance, the Zarn ships noticed the human maneuver and immediately moved to pursue, eager to catch the Vindictive in their grasp. But what the Zarn didn't realize was that they were walking right into the humans' plan. "We'll get them into position," Sergeant Doyle said, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Once they're in the asteroid field, we can close in from all sides." As the Zarn fleet followed the Vindictive, it quickly became clear that they were playing right into the humans' hands. The Zarn ships, unable to resist the temptation of an easy target, moved forward recklessly, hoping to finish the fight. They had underestimated the Earth soldiers once again. Once the Zarn ships had fully entered the asteroid field, Sarah gave the signal. "Now!" Without hesitation, the Vindictive changed course, its engines roaring back to full power as it swung around the field. The human fleet, which had been lying in wait behind the asteroids, surged forward in perfect unison. They had surrounded the Zarn fleet from all directions. The Zarn ships tried to scatter, but the humans were too fast. With pinpoint accuracy, they opened fire, destroying Zarn ships one after another. The asteroid field became a deadly maze of debris and explosions as the humans trapped their enemies in a battle they couldn't escape. "Target their engines," Sarah ordered. "Take out their ability to move." The Vindictive's cannons fired with precision, each shot aimed at disabling the Zarn ship's engines. The Zarn were trapped in the narrow spaces between the asteroids, unable to escape as the humans closed in. The deadly environment worked in the humans' favor, using the very thing the Zarn had hoped to hide in as their downfall. Sergeant Doyle's voice came through the comm. "We've got them. They're retreating, but it's too late. We're pushing them back, and their ships are losing power." On the bridge, the team watched as the last of the Zarn warships surrendered or were destroyed. The once powerful fleet was now in ruins. The humans had done what they came to do: stop the Zarn and protect the Valorians. Sarah stood tall, a sense of pride filling her chest, but her mind remained focused on the mission. "We need to finish the job. We can't give them a chance to regroup." "Commander," Lieutenant Grant said, "we've won. The Zarn are done here. They've lost their leadership and their fleet. It's over." Sarah didn't reply immediately. Her eyes scanned the view screen, taking in the destruction of the Zarn forces. But beneath the victory, there was a heavy weight. She knew this battle was just one step in a much larger war. There would be more enemies, more challenges ahead. But for now, they had saved the Valorians and sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. "Prepare the team for extraction," Sarah said finally. "We'll land on Valoria and meet with Princess Valora. The planet still needs our help, but this is a victory. Let's make sure it counts." As the Vindictive turned toward Valoria, the crew celebrated quietly, knowing that they had won a hard-fought battle. The humans had proven themselves not just as warriors, but as protectors of the galaxy's peaceful races, and they would continue to fight for as long as it took. The Vindictive made its way toward Valoria, its engines thrumming with the power of victory. The battle outside the planet had ended, and the Zarn fleet had been shattered, but there was no time to rest. Valoria, though saved for now, was still in danger. The Zarn had one final, desperate plan. They would send everything they had left to strike at the heart of Valoria, the Valorian capital, where the last remnants of their forces were preparing for a final assault. Commander Sarah Hawke stood on the bridge, her face hard as steel. The battle had been won, but there was more to do. They couldn't let the Valorians think that the Zarn were finished. There were still enemies out there, waiting to strike. Sarah wasn't going to let her team down, not after all they had fought for. "We need to destroy any remaining Zarn forces before they can reach the planet," Sarah said, her voice steady as she glanced over the tactical data. The Zarn were regrouping in a nearby asteroid belt, ready to launch one last attack. "Mark, set a course for the asteroid field. We're not letting them get close." Lieutenant Mark Grant's hands flew across his console, adjusting the ship's trajectory. "Course set, Commander. We'll be there in a few minutes." Sergeant Lisa Doyle approached the command center, her expression serious. "We've disabled their main fleet, but there are still smaller strike ships scattered across the system. If we don't clear them out now, they could cause trouble." Sarah nodded. "I know. It's time to finish this. We've come too far to back down now." Some crew of the Vindictive worked in perfect synchronization. They had fought together before, but now the battle was about more than just their mission. It was about protecting the Valorians, about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity was here to stay, and they weren't going to let the Zarn ruin the peace of another world. As the Vindictive approached the asteroid belt, the crew prepared for the final push. The asteroids, large and scattered, were a dangerous place to fight, but the humans were used to dangerous environments. Earth was a planet full of hazards, and every soldier aboard the Vindictive had learned how to survive against the odds. The Zarn, on the other hand, had no experience fighting in such a chaotic environment. This would be their downfall. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Sarah ordered, her voice calm but filled with authority. "We don't know what the Zarn will do, but they're not going to make it easy." The Vindictive slid into the asteroid belt, the massive rocks flying past them as they maneuvered through the deadly maze. On the view screen, Sarah could see the small Zarn ships, barely visible among the debris. They had nowhere to hide, nowhere to escape. The humans would find them. "Let's show them what happens when you try to pick a fight with humanity," Sergeant Doyle said, a grin creeping onto her face. She could feel the tension in the air. The soldiers knew this was their moment. They had the Zarn cornered, and they weren't going to let them get away. The Vindictive fired its weapons, precision strikes hitting the Zarn ships one after another. The Zarn didn't expect the humans to strike with such force, and many of their ships were caught in the crossfire. Explosions rocked the asteroid field, lighting up the darkness as the Zarn were scattered and destroyed. Mark Grant's voice came through the comms. "We've taken out half of their ships, but there are still a few left. They're trying to regroup behind that large asteroid." "Don't let them," Sarah said, her voice tight with focus. "We've got them on the ropes. Push forward and finish the job." The Vindictive surged forward, weaving between asteroids, as they closed in on the last remaining Zarn ships. The humans moved like shadows, fast and unpredictable. The Zarn had no chance to respond before the human ships' weapons hit them with deadly precision. One by one, the remaining Zarn ships were destroyed, their wreckage floating aimlessly in the asteroid field. The humans had won decisively. The Zarn had no more ships, no more strength to fight. "We've done it," Mark said, his voice filled with relief. "The last of the Zarn fleet is gone." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the victory settle over her. The battle was over. The Valorians were safe, and the Zarn threat had been crushed. But the war had changed the crew of the Vindictive. They had learned what it meant to fight, to survive, and to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "Not just yet," Sarah said quietly. "We still need to land and meet with the Valorian leaders. We've given them the chance to rebuild, but now it's up to them to stand on their own." The Vindictive shifted course, heading for Valoria's capital. As they approached the planet, the crew gathered together, preparing for the next phase of the mission, working with the Valorians to rebuild their defenses and ensure that their world was safe from any future threats. The humans had been the shield, but it was time for the Valorians to take up their own swords. As the Vindictive descended into the atmosphere, Sarah reflected on what they had accomplished. Earth had made a mark on the galaxy, one that would not be forgotten. The Valorians had seen what humans were capable of, and they had earned their respect. "Let's get this done," Sarah said to her crew, her voice filled with determination. "We've saved Valoria. Now we make sure it stays safe." The Vindictive touched down on the surface, and the crew disembarked, ready for the final phase of their mission. The Valorians greeted them with gratitude, their planet saved thanks to the humans who had stood in their defense. The battle was over, but the legacy of Earth's Deathworlders had just begun. The victory over the Zarn Empire had been swift, brutal, and complete. The Vindictive and its crew had smashed through the Zarn's forces, securing Valoria's survival. Now, as the dust settled and the sounds of battle faded away, Commander Sarah Hawk and her team stood on the surface of the planet, looking out at a world that had been saved, but still needed healing. Valoria's capital city had been damaged in the attack, but the planet's beauty remained. Its tall spires and shining structures gleamed in the light of the setting sun, though cracks in the buildings and scorch marks from battle were still visible. The people of Valoria had suffered, but they were resilient. They would rebuild. Princess Valora, the Valorian leader, walked toward Sarah with a solemn expression, but there was a spark of hope in her eyes. The battle had been won, but there was more to do. The Valorians were grateful, but their relationship with humanity had just begun. They had been saved, but what would happen next? "Commander Hawk," Valora began, her voice strong despite the strain. I cannot express how grateful we are for your help. Without your people, Valoria would have fallen. You have saved my people, and for that, I will always be in your debt." Sarah nodded, her face serious but respectful. "We didn't do this for gratitude. We did it because it was the right thing to do. You were being attacked, and no one should suffer that. Humanity knows what it's like to fight for survival." Valora's eyes softened. "You fought not just for us, but for everyone who is weak and helpless. You didn't just destroy our enemies, you gave us hope. And that is something more valuable than anything we could ever repay." Sarah didn't respond immediately. The words were meaningful, but the truth was, they weren't fighting just for hope. They were fighting because they had no choice. The Zarn weren't going to stop until they had conquered every peaceful planet they could find. Valoria was the first, but there would be others. "We didn't do it alone," Sarah finally said. "My crew fought hard and we all played a part in this. It was humanity working together, and that's what made us strong. But we're not done yet. You'll need to rebuild your world, and we'll be here to help." Valora nodded, her gaze turning toward the horizon where the sky was turning orange with the setting sun. "We will need more than just your weapons. We will need your knowledge, your strength, your leadership." The words hung in the air. Sarah had known that this moment would come. The Valorians were a peaceful race, and they had never faced war on the scale of the Zarn invasion. They were a delicate species in a universe full of danger. The idea of forming an alliance with humanity was a step into the unknown, but it was a step they needed to take, and Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. "We can help you rebuild," Sarah said, "but it's going to take time. And trust. Trust between us, and trust in each other." Valora looked at her with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "We will trust you. We've seen what you can do, and I believe that the galaxy can be a safer place with humans in it." As the sun dipped, below the horizon, Sarah turned back toward the Vindictive, her crew already beginning preparations to return to the ship. The work on Valoria was far from over, but the hardest part was done. The Zarn were defeated, their fleet scattered, and their influence broken. Her team, having fought side by side with their Valorian allies, gathered around her. Lieutenant Mark Grant, Sergeant Lisa Doyle, and Corporal Tom Harris all stood tall, their faces still focused despite the battle being over. They were soldiers, and for them the mission wasn't about glory. It was about duty. "I'm proud of you all," Sarah said to her team. "We did it together. We protected the Valorians, and we showed the galaxy what Earth's warriors are capable of." Grant gave a slight grin. "Guess we're not just known for surviving anymore. We're making a name for ourselves." Doyle, ever the strategist, added, "I don't think the Zarn will forget what happened here anytime soon, and I'm willing to bet there are a few other species out there who are watching us now." Harris, who had been quiet through much of the mission, looked up from his console. "It's not just the Zarn. The Valorians will need help learning to defend themselves. We can't always be around to protect them. They need to stand strong on their own." Sarah nodded. "They will. But we're not leaving them just yet. We'll stay for as long as they need us." As the crew made their way to the ship, Sarah stood for a moment, looking back at the Valorian city. The Valorians were strong in their own way, but they were now part of something bigger. Humanity had shown them that they didn't have to face the darkness alone. And in return, they had formed an alliance with the humans, a partnership that would change the course of the galaxy. But Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was filled with dangers, and there would be others who needed the help of Earth's warriors. They had made their mark, and their reputation would spread far and wide. Humans had come to the aid of the Valorians, but now they were allies in a galaxy that needed protecting. As Sarah entered the Vindictive, she glanced around at her crew. Each one of them had proven their worth. Each one had given everything for this mission. Together, they had done something that no one else could. They had become the galaxy's protectors, the force that would stand against those who threatened the peaceful. "This is just the start," Sarah said quietly to herself, looking out at the stars as the ship lifted off from the planet's surface. "The galaxy will know humanity's name, and we will make sure it's one that stands for justice, strength, and survival." The Vindictive soared into space, the future ahead full of possibilities. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. And this time they weren't just surviving, they were leading.